Let's talk about this. Here's a question for you. Do you know the signs of a stroke?
And more importantly, do you know the signs of a stroke in a child?
Probably not, because when you think of strokes, you think maybe people in their 60s, 70s, or older in age. Well, Chase Schweiger of Marlton, New Jersey, had a stroke when he was just 7 years old and has worked very hard to still accomplish the goals that he has in life.
Chase is 15 now, and he's joining us this morning alongside his mom, Wendy, and dad, Jordan.
Hello.
Telling his story.
Good morning.
Hello. Thank you for being here. So we want to start with what happened, but first, before we do that day, Chase, was healthy. There were no medical issues you guys had known of prior to this, right, Wendy?
Yes, nothing. Perfectly healthy kid, no medical issues, nothing in his background health-wise, completely fine.
So take us back then to that day. What happened?
Sure. So it was after school.
And he was 7, right?
He was 7 years old, and he was playing outside with neighbors. They were casually kicking around a soccer ball. And I suddenly heard one of his friends say, "Chase, get up, get up." And I looked behind me, and Chase was laying on the ground. And I walked up to him, and the first thing I noticed is he had drool coming out of the right side of his mouth. And I thought that his face looked funny. Something was off. But he was staring at me. And then I thought he was kidding around until he wasn't getting up. The ambulance came. The EMT suspected he was having a seizure. He was rushed to a local hospital where he was unresponsive. He wasn't talking, but he was moaning. And I kept on saying at the hospital, something strange about his face. It looked off. And then Jordan was actually in Pittsburgh at the time, and 5-6 hours later when he arrived, Jordan noticed that Chase wasn't moving his right side. We were eventually transferred to CHOP, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and that's where they discovered the stroke.
Chase, do you remember any of this?
No,
at 7? No. Now, what did you notice? Like a droopy side of his face or something?
It was just very odd to me that he was looking at us and he had this stare, and it was beating through us, but he couldn't move, he wasn't doing anything, and then I noticed he was moving his left side. And as I was just trying to talk to him, I tried to get him to move his right side. Nothing was happening.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I said, "I'm sorry, it was, can you give us a thumbs up if you could hear us?" And he did, but only on his left side. And that's how we were communicating with him.
That sounds like a stroke, but not when you're looking at a 7-year-old.
Well, we didn't know at the time, but Jordan and I were the ones that noticed 2 symptoms. His face was drooping, which is why I kept on saying something looked strange about his face. And he wasn't moving his right side. He had arm weakness, which Jordan noticed, and then of course he had no speech.
So when you finally realized this, and when doctors said, like, what did the doctors say after they did the testing?
Well, they had told us they were at CHOP. He was going to be taken for an MRI to rule out a stroke, and Jordan and I actually thought a stroke. He's 7 years old. And then after the MRI, when they told us to meet them, he was in an ICU room, then we knew.
Chase, what after effects do you still deal with?
Seizures.
How often do they come?
They're very far in between, but they're sporadic.
A couple of times a year.
A couple of times a year.
Yeah. And you still, what about movement in your right arm?
I'd say I had movement in my right arm, but not what do I
Can't really use it.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough to use his hand. It can move the arm, but
will that ever get better?
There's no such thing as never, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah, sure.
I mean, what he's already accomplished today is much more than they would have ever expected. So the fact that he continues to fight and continues to try, nobody will say he can't, so we do.
What has the journey been like, Wendy?
A lot of ups and downs. It was quite a roller coaster. When he was in the hospital, he started making progress actually pretty quickly. He actually said his first word, I would say, a few days in, and that was really the jump start for us.
Yeah.
And
then today, he's pretty active.
He's active. He's a typical teenager.
What high school?
Cherokee.
What year are you in?
Sophomore.
Sophomore. Okay. Do you have any idea what you want to do with your life?
I probably can't do any sports when I grow up, so I want to be a sports reporter.
Oh, goodness. Oh,
well, we know some people we can put you in contact with.
Yeah, hang around.
But Wendy, you've also made it a point, since people don't think strokes, especially when it comes in kids, that you're trying to spread awareness. And isn't there an acronym? There's something out there you want people to know.
Yes, the acronym is FAST, which stands for face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, and time. And early on, Chase had all of these symptoms. And, unfortunately, strokes are very common in the elderly, but you wouldn't really think of it with a child. But after Chase had a stroke, I started reaching out and finding so many different communities where there are so many children that have strokes.
Right, yeah.
A lot of them, majority of them, are not diagnosed right away.
And that's important. Time is of the essence.
Time is of the essence, exactly. We know, very lucky with Chase's recovery. He's walking, he's talking, he's eating, he talks back to us.
Well, it's good that you're
like a
spreading-
teenager, huh?
You're spreading the word across the whole country.
Yes,
Thank you.
and that's our mission, exactly. We started to do that about a year after his stroke, which we call his stroke anniversary, and we haven't stopped.
Good.
Well, keep it going. Keep us updated.
Thank you.
Phillies fan?
Yep.
Had an idea.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Brian? No, it's fine. We'll take a break and come right back.